question number 1. And Coach House, appreciate you being here, Coach House. What are some red flags that come up during the application process as well as the interview process? Anybody on red flag? We've kind of hit on that a little bit, and we may have answered Coach House's question. The biggest red flag that I see is the people that you don't put on your resume, or when you leave things out. And I can tell you in just my stack, I've got at least 2 examples that I know of within that. One that's left off a year that I 100% know where they're at. It's not on the resume. And then 2, just it's the administration. And I see the administration more than anything. Leaving off your current administration, you're going to have to find somebody where you're at that's going to be able to be a reference for you, or it's just not going to work. Any other red flags that you guys can think of? Go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, Jay, I think that part of the application process is spot on. Another one that I've experienced and just to me is kind of a red flag is during the actual interview process is you get an applicant that's kind of dogging their current administrators, the people they're working for right now, where they're leaving from. You may have some sour grapes or some disagreements, but I don't think in that interview process it's a time for you to throw them under the bus. And that's, you get that once in a while too.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, Jay, in addition,
go, you're good.
In addition to and this is kind of tricky because sometimes people don't want to tell their supervisors that they're looking, but I think whenever you catch a supervisor by surprise, when you call to talk to them about it is somewhat of a red flag, because they should know if you are an aspiring assistant coach or even an existing defensive or offensive coordinator, that you are likely aspiring to become a head coach. And if you're doing a good job establishing a relationship with your administration, I don't think those things should be caught off or should catch your administrators off guard, because they should be wanting that for you. And I don't know, I think just catching them off guard is always a red flag for me. Like, why does this person not know that they're looking right now?
Yeah, very true.
I think one thing we look at is when you bring someone in and they have no clue on the background of that sports program. And when they come in and they talk about, even down to your athletic periods of the day and the success or the failure, what's going on, or how many kids in the programs or anything else, when they come in and they start asking you, so what is your daily schedule? What's the schedule here at Central High School like? And you're like going, in the back of your head, you're going, you should have thought this out and walked this in before you ask us these questions. Because that goes back to my point about the resumes. You need to have action and ready to go and show that you have done some background check for the job.
I'm going to go to the next question. Sire Luster, what do you value most in the leadership of your athletic programs?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I think for us, it's the culture that our coaches are trying to establish. Like I said earlier, I thought everyone here is big on culture, and we want a leader for not only our football program, but we want a leader for that campus. It's like we have a head coach at United High School. He was just eliminated in the 3rd round, and he's been there at United for 25 years, and he's a genuine, he cares about everybody. He'll advocate for volleyball. And just the other day, he came and said, "Hey, Coach Cruz, we got to do something about our golf coach because he's not practicing like he should with our kids, and I don't want to shortchange our kids." And 25 years ago, football coaches were football coaches, and so that's what we value in leadership, especially if you're an aspiring campus athletic coordinator, head football coach. You really have to lead your campus, not only your team, but your campus.
Mm-hmm. I agree with Bobby 100%. I mean, that the head football coach needs to be visible everywhere throughout the campus for not only other athletic, teams, but also at fine arts events and, trunk or treat events that the principal's hosting on campus, or, just be there, show their face, show their support, because they genuinely care, because they genuinely want to be there, not because they're supposed to be there or because the principal wants them there. When you have a person that really cares about the campus and the community, it's going to make our jobs as ADs a lot easier because they are really going to keep an eye out for everything that happens within their campus, on the basketball court, the volleyball court, wherever it may be. And they're going to help you to take care of any situations that might come up within all programs. So it's like having an assistant AD when you have a head football coach that really cares.
Yeah, 100%.
I typically sum that up as a people. You're a people person, and there's people work that you have to do over the paperwork, but the paperwork can't be ignored, right? You've got to be pretty talented in doing all of those things. And the people work is just what you talked about, being all throughout your campus, all throughout your community, making sure that you're doing your job to help everybody in your building, your kids, your coaches, the people that don't have anything to do with your athletic program, be the best version of themselves. And the way you do that with your teachers, you're making sure your student athletes are not causing problems in the classroom. So the teacher can be the best version of herself because you're not putting out a fire because the student athlete is not behaving accordingly. Oh, shoot. You're a supporter. You're supporting your coaches in their craft. You're helping them become leaders of their assistant coaches. You're helping assistant coaches become head coaches. You're building leadership capacity throughout the building. You're a problem solver and not a person who creates problems. Because if you got a head coach that's going to create problems, then you've got a problem that's going to give you issues for years until you're able to get them out of there. And then someone that's not a clock watcher. I don't know, the generation is different today. And we all came from a different mindset than the coaches come from, especially the younger generations. But if you're a clock watcher, probably not going to be very good at being a head football coach and an athletic coordinator because you're generally the first person there, last one to leave every day.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm chuckling. I'm so sorry, Melanie. AD life never stops, folks. What time is it? It's 6:45 and Melanie's working. And that is our life. And it's the life of a head football coach, campus coordinator. I think somebody just mentioned that it's your right hand man and right hand woman. Your coordinators. They help in things. We're not going to go into it, but I chuckled when I looked at them, like, oh my goodness, Texas way.
Yes.
Yeah. So I will tell you, unless somebody else wants to pop in, I'll move on to the next question after this. This is a loaded question for me because I want it all. I expect it all. I expect you to be good at your craft, excellent at what you do, and in this case, it's in football. You need to be a well-rounded football coach, knowledgeable, able to guide and lead and grow your football staff in the sport of football, but also in our coaching profession, which means you got to be growth-minded. You got to be character through and through, and then not just growing your coaching staff, because I think sometimes that gets forgotten. We talk about character and growing our kids and building that foundation of excellence so they move on. I mean, that's a given, but don't forget about the coaching staff because they are extensions of you. And especially in this sport, football that we're talking about, let's just say for a round number, you've got 10 staff members. I just know how football programs operate, and they splinter out into family groups or position groups. So you're relying a lot on your assistant coaches to be that model of character and integrity and work ethic and all the things that we're talking about, so that they're the kids are growing and building and reflecting of the coach that's assigned to them. So there's that, but then there's the piece where football and the athletic period is over. There's a big part of your school day that you can spend in your office, or you can spend building relationships in the hallways with not only campus administration, but teachers, doing us a good service with building that unity with teachers that are not coaches. They need to see you. Kids need to see you in the hallways. Huge when you can get a campus coordinator, football coach in the hallways instead of in the office. I understand in the fall, like there's work, but can you be efficient? Can you get out of your office and build time where you're on campus? Yes, you can, and you just have to do that. The last thing that I would say that's extremely valuable, and I've seen this from my time in Grapevine Colleyville all the way up to now. Are you working the job before the job opens? Or are you starting to work the job when the job opens because you want the job? It's too late. Don't you need to be committed if you're a football coach right now that's a coordinator who's aspiring to be a head coach that's not attending softball games in the spring? That's a problem, especially if you want that internal job, because you're not going to have the support of the girls' side. Or the baseball games or boys soccer. You need to be seen. If you aspire to be a head football coach, campus coordinator, that role is inclusive of all programs on that campus. And if you don't have a good relationship with those other coaches, and they're not seeing you supporting them, and it's just football, that's going to be a problem for you, especially for an internal. But it's also a problem if you go external. And somebody said it earlier, like, we all know each other. Or we may know your head football coaches. I mean, it's super important to dive in. You should be doing that anyway. If you're a growth-minded coach who's an aspiring leader in the next, like, it shouldn't even be a problem. So take that to heart, because I've seen it cost people jobs that I thought were good coaches, but they waited too long to step in and start doing the things that they should have been doing. Work long before that job opens.
All Jane, right. we had an issue with some of our head coaches whenever I first came on, when we started talking about, are you going into the practices of the head coaches on your campuses to participate in the evaluative process? And there was always I've got this meeting, or it was always something related to football. But when you are the athletic coordinator, and I always tell us, you're more of a coordinator than you are a football coach for us. They're both important, and you cannot minimize the role of that leadership that you have. And if you're only in your office and you only talk to your coaches when it's time for you to do the evaluation process, I'm going to have a hard time if you're talking to me about growth, but you've not been into my program to see what I'm doing during my practices, and you only show up to a game or two throughout the year.
All right, I'm going to move to the next question. Coach Gonzalez, when hiring an athletic coordinator, head football coach, what do you measure when deciding if the candidate is a successful coach?
I would say that the references would tell us all that, of course, looking at the resume. But when we start making those phone calls and asking and inquiring about, this coach, the people that we're calling will tell us pretty much a lot of what we're looking for, right? Or not looking for. So that gets easily measured when, not only calling the references on paper, but calling other athletic directors or people that have actually worked with you as a coach.
Yeah.
Jay, I think it's important too that, I think that people define success as your win-loss record. That's not necessarily true.
No.
And when you're looking at schools, and I'm going to use mine and Roseanne's, we're in the same district for everything but football, but our population is, we're not oozing Division I athletes everywhere, right? And so being a success at our schools and in our districts and in our programs is building character and building young women and young men. And I think that what Roseanne said is important. Going through the references, calling people, and finding out what is this person about. And I think if you tell me that a coach went into a losing program that maybe hadn't won a game in 4 years, and they finally won a game, but their eligibility was great during the year, their kids are passing classes, they're not having discipline issues, their graduation stats are up for their athletes, I think that in and of itself is the biggest success that we can have right now, especially in public school education.
Attendance.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. attendance, the community service, and how you're connecting your athletic program to the community with your community service projects are big. What is the connection that you have between your feeders and your high schools, and what does that culture look like? Are all big things that we look at as well if you are an existing head coach.
Yeah, I would just echo all that. It's tough to say when you're looking at a resume, specifically with coordinator, head coach. Your head coach is gonna come with a record. That doesn't say the whole story. A coordinator, there's a lot of factors. Yes, you're an offensive or defensive coordinator, but there's still the record is kind of the outer layer, and what's the meat. And so that's just where we're going to reach out, especially if you're a coordinator. We're going to talk to head coaches that you've been with. What maybe the athletic directors if we know them, but a lot of us also know head football coaches as well. And so it's just getting into the weeds with them and really finding out who the person is, what's the work ethic like, and do they fit what we're looking for in a head football coach, campus coordinator. And Kevin said it earlier before he had to pop off. There's a bunch of diamonds in the rough out there. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to let somebody pick this up while I try and get my sound fixed on my side. When reviewing the pool of applications, what has been the most consistent attribute among candidates who stand out? As far as standing out, I'm going to tell you, when I'm in the printing phase, I'm not heavy into the reading phase of what all's there. I'm going to skim through it. The first thing that stands out as attributes of the most consistent attributes of people who stand out is organization, presentation. Again, that speaks to, when I talked about that homework side of things a little while ago, that speaks to how you're going to communicate and what your communications are going to look like. And if you can catch my eye immediately with that, that's important. I think Eric, I believe, mentioned it. I think Eric said, 3 pages. I don't mind if it's more than 3 pages, but I can tell you, I get packets all the time that I just don't print because I'm a printer, but I'm not going to print out a full packet like that. So if you can, I don't really put a cap on how many pages you should be, but your pages ought to be to the point where they're keeping my attention. And that's just in your presentation and how you lay things out. If you can make it nice and simple, or does it look like an English essay? That's difficult for us. You got to understand, in my case right now, I've got 85. I can't read all that stuff. So you got to be somebody that's going to keep my attention and make me want to read from front to back. So that's one thing. I'm going to let somebody else pop in.
I think sometimes just if you're talking about the paper piece of it, because I'm with Jay as it relates to the paper part of it, it's got to be clean, aesthetically pleasing, sequentially or in order or organized, well written. You don't see a lot of misspelled words and those types of things, because that's the first thing that says, okay, we could have an issue on our hand with people and how they communicate. But experiences that you've had, like where you've been, who you've been with, sometimes that will jump off of a page in what you've done when you've been there. I think there was a question somewhere in the chat that asked about how do you demonstrate that you've taken initiative? Well, you make a section that talks about initiatives that you've done and then briefly touch on them. And then when you get an opportunity to talk in your interview, if you get the interview, then you get to expound on it, because it's not about writing the essay in your resume. It's about putting those things there that's going to attract the attention of the people who are reading them to try to grab them. And the thing that we're not saying right now is that you also have to make sure, I said this before, and another thing that I did with Jay, it is a lot about who you know, right? But even more so, it's not just about who you know, it's about who knows you. And so you've got to do a good job of selling yourself at your campus and beyond, putting yourself out there in this field if you know it's something that you want to do, so that whenever these people in this circle and beyond are reaching out, they've heard your name or they know your name and they can speak speak to you. So you got to do some things of making sure people know who you are, not just about who you know.
And understand that she means know who you are by your work. You know, your work will speak more than anything. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the workhorses.
Yes.
Yes. I would say when we're talking about just attributes that stand out immediately in the first phase, and Coach Glenn, it may be a little deeper than just kind of how do you get into the green folder. That's kind of how I'm taking this right now. How do you get into that green folder if you're a Coach Glenn or any of the coaches down in here? It's what I said earlier. I'm going to review, but the other thing I'm looking for most of the time at the very end is your references. Sometimes it's at the back of your resume, and then there's a few pages of packet. What's your transition plan look like? Sometimes, so I'm finding where those references are because I want to see if I know the names, and I will just tell you that I know of some in my folder right now, and Coach Stewart is there, and Coach Pearson is there, and there are two people on this call just happen to be here, and I have them in here. So those are contacts that clearly that I have. So those are things. If you know people that I know, or not necessarily athletic directors, and there will be people in the room that are listening that know this as well. If you put something that catches my eye, it's probably going to be something growth mindset wise. If you put again, I saw this, and there may be a couple people on here. I don't remember if they're on or not, but you put in your resume, NIAAA, RAA, CAA, those things pop out to me. And I have two of those. Those are immediate signs for me like, I want to look at this person, because how as an aspiring head coach do you already know about the NIAAA and you're involved? Not only are you involved, but you've invested time into getting those certifications. I know what that process looks like for both of those, and that means something to me. As a growth mindset guy who thinks that you should be, plugged into these associations, those are eye-catching to me. Other things.
That's good, Jay. That's really good, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing for me. Like, my people know I can get a little bit stupid. I've got a daily impact, and I will put that up for everybody that's in here. If you want to get into our coaches daily impact, we have some people that are not in our district. I have no problems. It's turned into a weekday daily impact. It used to be weekends too, and I took the weekends off now. But I will put that in before we leave, just so that it's a Sports U. Super easy. But are you participating in things like that locally? Like, if you're local, why the heck aren't you? If you're not local, there are some things, but there's the mastermind. There are people in this group that go back to the Elite Coaches Mastermind way back several years ago that was not mine. I was just a member of. And like, those people, because of the contact, and when I see Elite Coaches Mastermind, or if I see Aim High Mastermind, or I know the name because of Aim High, like, that tells me you're willing to invest in your growth and you want to be around other doers and quality people. That speaks volumes to someone like me who's hiring a head football coach, campus coordinator. Or it could be someone like me who's hiring a head boys soccer coach. It don't have to be. I promise you, my system is no different. The interview looks a little bit different for my other head coaches, just as far as who's on the panel. The process, the exact same. I'm still printing papers and putting them in green, yellow, and red. Those are the things that stand out to me because they're what I value. And if I see those things, I'm gonna get all the other little pieces because I already know what you're willing to go above and beyond. You're willing to be uncommon. Show me that in a resume, and you're going to get me to dive deeper into your resume. Bear with me. All right, Coach Landrum. When looking at resumes for applicants who do not have head football coach experience, do leadership positions in football help other than coordinator, such as junior high coordinator, head freshman, head JV, director of football operations, or would it be more important to see head coaching positions in second sports? For reference, my school does not have head coaches in second sports. I'll bounce in and
I think that's all going to depend. That's all going to depend on the time in which you interview and how many people get in that pool.
yeah, and who else is in there? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, Coach Landrum, Coach Stewart's exactly right. You know, if I interview for a head softball position and I have 9 applicants, well, you're probably getting into the mix because I have 9 applicants.
Mhm.
If I have, you know, 85 head football applicants and 25 of them are high quality, or at least on paper, and I've got to whittle that down, well, then this kind of becomes, you know, what type of leadership experience do they have? Because then that coordinator experience is a lot different. If, you know, when backed up, they're doing all the things necessary. So not to, you know, throw water on your flame, but coming out of as a junior high coordinator, we're probably going to go with the coordinator over the current junior high coordinator, in all likelihood. Just it's good experience, because what it tells me is that you have experience with your 7th and 8th grade campuses. And what I tell my people, like, we're vertically aligned. If you're the head football coach, you're the head football coach for 7th through varsity. If you're the head basketball coach, you're the head basketball coach for your feeder campus or campuses from the 7th grade to varsity. Those, what we often refer to as junior high coaches, and I catch myself saying junior high coach too, but the expectation as the head coach is those are your sub varsity coaches. You have them for 6 years. So what I like about junior high coordinator is that you know what it's like to be down there and coach at the junior high level, and that you've worked your way up. So you were a good enough coach. I'm just going to work through your stuff, Coach Landrum, and I might know who you are if you're a Grapevine Colleyville guy. If not, then you've got a similar name. But if you worked your way from junior high coordinator to head freshman to head JV to director of football operations, what I see as someone who's evaluating a resume is somebody who, especially if you stayed within the system, like I think Coach Stewart was talking about, you're being elevated along the way. That tells me you're working. Those are good people. That speaks volumes to me. If you're being elevated and you're in one feeder system and you're working up through that, that's a very good thing. You know, if you've got that type of experience in maybe 3 different schools, it maybe doesn't have the same weight, but I do like the junior high experience. But not a deal breaker, but it really depends on the strength of the pool, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'll go one further, because it somewhat relates to Coach Landrum's question. I also, there's just a difference if you're a special teams coordinator than if you're an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and depending on the setup, an assistant head coach. Some schools have an assistant head coach, that's like the guy that's right under, you know, head football coach. So there's some operational capacity in that coach, and so those 3 pieces bear more weight than what a special teams coordinator would bear in my eyes. I know Coach Zane, good guy, Grapevine Colleyville days. Mel and Roseanne, Coach Zane's down in your neck of the woods in San Antonio. If I remember right, he's at Clark. But so Coach Zayden asked, during the application process, does it help to email AD and or principal about your application with a resume and letter, or is that redundant?
I think it's helpful. I think that's showing some initiative. You're showing some interest in the job, and you're not putting in an application and sending a resume for every job that's posted. And so I do think that when you send that email and you make that contact and you introduce yourself, I think that is important. That's just my personal opinion.
So I will say this. When I was a principal, I hated it because you get 7,000 emails a day, right? And it's like, ugh. And I was one who was adamant about responding to everybody who emailed me. That's what I did. As an athletic director, I do like it because my emails are not quite as full as it was as a principal. I would say if you have to do it over one or the other, I would send it to the athletic director. opposed to the principal, just because of the volume of emails that a principal receives on a daily basis. My 2 cents.
And to piggyback on that, and I agree with that, but I think that it also depends on where you're applying. If you're applying to a 1A, a 2A, a 3A high school, you're applying for a combined job. So you need to know who those stakeholders are that are going to be making the call on this job. If you're applying to a school district that has a single athletic director that's not the head coach, then yeah, it needs to go to the athletic director. But yes, I agree with you.
And on speaking on my behalf, to me, it's a little redundant because I see the application and I'm just being honest here, right? However, I don't mind it, but I do feel like sometimes it can be a little redundant. But I will tell you this, that because I received so many, like in this last pool of applicants that we had, because I received so many side emails letting me know of their interest, I just gave everybody the same blanket statement. Every single person that emailed me, I'm in receipt of your email, thank you for your time, and the applications will be vetted and so forth, something like that. So don't be offended when you get a response that way. I think we just do it so that we're fair and consistent with everyone. Because I could easily say, oh, can you tell me a little bit about yourself or whatever? If I do that, then now we've gone outside of the whole filtering process, right? So I have to just give a blanket statement. And that came from my HR department, because I asked them, like, what do I do? I'm getting all these emails and I don't not want to respond. I want to respond to them to let them know I'm in receipt of the email. And so they gave me a blanket statement to send everyone. So everyone that did that got the same statement from me.
And I think it's important too that when you're applying for jobs, don't assume that email is going to be your application. You still have to follow the process. And I think that sometimes I've seen that, not necessarily with football jobs, but with like other head coaching jobs in other sports. It's, well, no, they send this email, and then when we go to look and see if they've actually applied, they haven't. And so there's a red flag to me right there.
Eric, you got anything? Or
no, I'm the same thing. I don't mind getting the emails. It's not a big deal, but I do agree. It is frustrating to get an email, and then when you look at the email and you go to the application site or whatever software you're using and you can't find them, it's almost like you're seeing a signal. It's like, hey, I'm just going to test this out and see what happens.
Yeah.
You're really not all in. Then do me a favor. Don't send it to me. I'm going to look at the applicants. To me, it's just easier to look at emails real quick, because I can anywhere at a game, I can look on my phone and look at it and so forth. But make sure you're applying for the job as well. We have a standard reply back as well, and I don't really look, but it's always, I appreciate, thank you very much for reaching out. Thank you for the information. Please make sure you've applied for the job at this website. Thank you very much, and send. We just don't want to say, hey, we like this guy, and then we go to applicants like, there's no one here. There's no one by that name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that that's important for him to know, because I think that there's the standard response from everybody. Now, it may spark us to go and actually look, like they're saying, but I think everybody's going to give this. I don't think many people are going to give you that one-on-one that you may be looking for from the initial email. I think the best thing you can do in that instance is if you can find somebody who could potentially reach out to a person, a reference type scenario that could speak on your behalf. Maybe you may get a little bit, better luck that way than just sending the email.
Yeah, so I'm going to dive into this one, because this is Coach Zayden, for this is your question, but for everybody else out there, this is a great question. And I'm going to tell you, there's not really one right answer, because it depends, like you've heard, it depends on the scenario, but it also depends on the person that's doing the hiring. And I have no shame in saying I'm a ridiculous, crazy guy. I want things my way. So in my case, I want you emailing me, but here's what gets me. Read the description in the THSCA job post. And most of the time, those job posts tell you who to email. Mine, I think it's in bold. I want you to email j.zeller@brazos-port-isd.net with a PDF, because I want whatever you're seeing on your end, and this is to your benefit. I want what you see on your computer screen to print out the exact same way on my computer screen. And if you don't do a PDF, if you send Word or some other crazy format thing that you're super creative and techie, sometimes it doesn't always work on our end. Send the PDF, but read the job description. Not so much on my BISD HR site. That's going to be standard form. I would imagine most all of us post these positions on the THSCA job board. Read the description. Read the description. It'll tell you exactly what to do. And then, in our world, it's all coming to me. And when somebody, we've had a good solid handful that have emailed me and emailed the principal. That principal is forwarding it directly to me because he knows what our process is, and I am the gatherer. And then I get everything in our Google folder. So, but that's our world. The other thing I'm going to tell you, and this is a personal preference because I'm a paper guy, but I think you do yourselves a lot of favors with other ADs. When they talk about, standard form replies, I do that as well. I have a Microsoft Word sitting saved on my desktop. So all I have to do is copy and paste, and everybody got the exact same response. That's efficiency. You would do well to, practice those things because you're going to need that too as a campus coordinator, head football coach. Some things you just need to be standard form quick because you can get a lot more done than trying to be, off the cuff, having a response. The thing that I love the most and the thing that drives me the most crazy, when somebody sends me their entire packet, so that's cover letter, resume, and if you've got a transition plan, put it in one PDF. Because now I push one button and I print one time. I get your whole packet. Or I've got to print 4 different things, so I got to click on 4. I mean, those are quirks for me. I know that. But I'm telling you, my quirks, other people will appreciate as well. So word to the wise, and I adjusted because of what I like. It's kind of like what, if you're an assistant coach, if you're a head coach, but you're an assistant coach in another sport, you know what you need from your assistant coaches. So when you go to that next sport, you're doing everything that you're wanting in your assistant from your assistant coaches for that other head coach. So I think it does the same thing here. But when I was applying for head jobs, I remembered I only want to print one time, and it just saves time. So my packet is in one PDF. So I mean, we're late in the game, so that's the word to the wise. If you have 6 documents, and one of them is your teaching certificate, and one of them is a reference letter from another school, and another is a reference letter, just put all that in one PDF. Super easy, and it's much appreciated. And then I'm gonna last thing on this, because this is super important and it drives me nuts. Show me you want the job in your email. Show me you care about my job. And several of our panelists have mentioned this. If you're standard replying and just forwarding things that you've sent to other people, I promise you, we see all the time other schools. Somebody said it this evening, and it's easy to do. Send me, I don't need to print out, because I print your emails too. So when I print my packet, just so that you know, I print the email that is sent to me, even if it's blank. And I promise you, I have over double digits that there is no body to the email. It's just an email to me. They attach their documents and hit send. I do not like that. I print that email anyway because I want to remember that they sent nothing. This job wasn't as important enough, or it wasn't important enough to them to send me a paragraph of, hey, Coach Zeller, I'm so and so, super interested in the position that you have at Brazosport, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Speak to me in a paragraph. But I don't need 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. You don't have to go crazy. You've got a cover letter probably, but make it personal instead of impersonal. And and kind of a word to the wise, and this is why I wanted to tell you all about Pat Cohan's recording in the library. If you get to that rough hour mark when he's talking about Chat GPT, and he teaches you how to research the people that you're going to be interviewing with, if you know them. Otherwise, you're just randomly putting, find out the, superintendent's name. You can figure out. It was pretty darn spot on when he used me as the guinea pig on that live. So do that stuff, and because it matters to me. And if it matters to me, I promise you it matters to other people that are reviewing those. All right, that was a long-winded one, but that's a good question. Coach Fudge, when an OC or DC applies for a head football coach campus coordinator posting without prior head coaching experience, what types of experience and data do you look for on their resume to show that the candidate is prepared and well qualified for the job? I think we kind of talked about this one, and this is the thing. I'm not really reviewing these. I'm just going in order, putting them up there. I want to make sure everybody's being seen, and maybe it sparks a little bit of a light bulb, and we come back to it. But I think we talked about this. I will tell you the biggest thing, Coach Fudge, for this for me is I'm going to look down that resume. Was the 25 football season the first time you've been an OC or DC, and then you've been in a position coach prior to that? So some of that stuff will tell me how much coordinator experience you have, because some people will have 8 to 10 years of coordinator experience. And so those are, we'll look at that, but then, all the same answers. We're looking at, body of work, who do we know, and then start talking to head coaches and ADs, specifically about you. So I personally have zero issues with coordinators and DCs because, at one point I was an assistant coach. And at one point I was a head coach looking to get into athletic administration. Like, if you only look for the people that are already there, you're missing out on future leaders that are stealing a phrase from Starnes, but diamonds in the rough. Like, I have zero issue with it. I just want to make sure that person is going to be the best for our district, our campus, and our kids, and can bring the knowledge and experience with that program. So anybody else there? I think we got that several questions up, but.
Coach, I would say that one thing that I noticed whenever OCs and DCs or people who haven't held a position, when they get to the table, I think more of an issue than on the resume from not being pulled to interview is that they get in there and they still speak like an OC or a DC instead of speaking like a person who's wearing the hat. So if you're prepared and you're qualified for it, when you get to that table, you have to make sure that you're speaking the language and demonstrating that you are ready for the job and not speaking to the interview panel from the OC or DC perspective.
Yeah, 100%. Great point. Yeah, you got to start speaking the language and getting after it there. All right, this is going to be a little bit different. Coach Say, are there any traits or habits that you look for or notice? It doesn't have to be for an AD head coach specifically, just any traits or habits you want someone in a significant leadership position to have. So, I think we talked about that as well as what are you doing? And I think because I know where Coach Say is and what his status is. I think for young coaches who don't necessarily have the years of experience to really stand out in a head coach group like what I have right now. I mean, it's going to be difficult in the folder that I have with the experience that I'm going to be working through for someone with 5 years or less to even get me to invest a ton of time in, just because you don't have enough time in the position. Even if it's in a coordinator, it's probably at a small school, or maybe you've come in from out of state. But the other thing I'm looking at is how much UIL experience do you have? If you're coming from out of state, how much work is going to be required of our offices to support the compliance piece that we often so heavily depend on our coordinators to do. So that's another piece of it. And so it just depends. But I would say specifically, work ethic. Do your job. So whatever, in whatever sport that you're in, and whatever role you're in within that sport, even if it's the head freshman coach, do your job. And then when your job's 100% done, instead of sitting in the coach's office, find something else to do. Be a plate cleaner. Don't sacrifice your job to brown nose because you're going to pick up some, work for the head coach to take something off their plate. And all of a sudden you left out do your job, do it well. And if you're efficient with your work, you're going to have time, and then be that doer that people want to have on staff. That's how you get promoted. You move up the ranks. And once you're doing that at a high level and coaching at a high level, and by that I mean in a your assigned position, coordinator or head coach, and you're continuing to do that, now you're taking things off an athletic director's plate as a coordinator, even if it's a DC or OC. I know DCs and OCs that do great work for me, and it's much appreciated, and it's above and beyond. Those are things that I notice and I remember. So keep doing hard work, and helping support. Yeah, be a plate cleaner. It's a good easy way to say it.
And Jay, I think you've already hit on this. Be that person that's looking for opportunities to grow. Don't just stay complacent in where you're at. Look for growth opportunities. Go to your head coach and say, what else can I do? What can I do to help? Go to clinics. Take opportunities that are in front of you. I know that just in the football world, once football season's over, in every city or in every large metroplex in Texas, there's some type of football group putting on a weekly free, coaches coming together and you're learning. And so take every opportunity that you have in front of you to grow. And it may not just be in your sport. It may be if you're an assistant coach and it's your first year and, Coach, I need you to coach pole vault. We'll go in and learn how to be the best pole vault coach you can be. And if it's a matter of your head football coach is saying, hey, I need you to make sure that our helmet inventory is done correctly and logged every week. Well, take that opportunity to learn why you're doing it and why it's important and grow with it.
All right, Coach Wilder, when deciding if you're going to bring in a candidate, what ratio in terms of importance would you say you look for between the head coach and AC, athletic coordinator position? Is it 60% head coach, 40% athletic coordinator? Is the AC position more important? Coach Stewart, you want to hop on that one real quick?
So, and people aren't going to necessarily agree with me, but I tell our coordinators all the time, you are here, it's 80% coordinator, 20% football coach. Because your football season is gonna start and it's gonna end, even though you have a preseason and a season and an off season. You are constantly dealing with your athletic program and head coaches and parents and students and assistant coaches. That work never stops. You are leading leaders all day, every day. And there are times where you have to take your athletic coordinator position and have your AC, your DC run what's going on in football. You've got to go do the job of the athletic coordinator. I think it's 80-20 because of the leadership capacity that you have to acquire, obtain, and demonstrate when you're dealing with people on your campus. Now, I also am in a district where football is not, we don't win as much as we would like to. And so the jobs of our head football coaches are not taken from them because they don't win necessarily. But if you're losing in the athletic coordinator position because you've got problem after problem, you've got unhappy people, you've got unhappy parents, the athletic program is in disarray, you'll lose your job real quick here for that, for not being an athletic coordinator that is effective, efficient, and influential.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I would add, I mentioned it earlier, be efficient.
Yeah.
Be efficient. Now you can't be efficient. Things are going to pop up. You're going to need to run to the campus. So things happen just like they do for assistant principals. But if you can, and it also depends on when your athletic period is. So I mean, a lot of this is specific to your campus and where you're at. But no matter where it's at, you can plan time to be a coordinator, be seen, support your main body campus, students, teachers, admin, and then also plan time to be a head football coach. You have to be organized and efficient. And again, we've said that. That's what we're looking for. How can we find through our processes somebody who's going to be able to be? I'm going to throw a wrinkle in it. I want you to be 100% of that position when you're in that position. Like if you're in football, I want you to be all in. Now, if I come out there, we've got something, sometimes there's some fires. When you're not in football, I need you to be 100% in, supporting all the other programs, supporting the campus, because at the end of the day, football is from August to, depends on how far you are, November, December. Now, I understand that it's this year round, but there's an athletic period piece to it year round. What are you doing in that spring semester when you're not in season? Because you no longer have the, I got a big game Friday night type of excuse. Where are your time commitments going then? I'll tell you what I love though. I love walking in. I spend time at the 6A campus in normal circumstances. Right now I'm super busy, so it's a lot easier for me to be housed in my athletic office where I have access to printer and scanner and all the stuff because I'm drowning in paper. But I spend 3 days a week in the athletic office, which is on the 6A campus. And I spend, when possible, I try to do 2 days a week at the 4A campus. What I love being able to see, no matter which campus I'm on, is my coordinators, not just the head football coach, but the head football coach specifically, present and willing to serve their staff on campus because they have other questions. And when you're in that role, you're an extension of me. You make it easy for them to have an athletic go-to person that's there all the time. Are you present and available for them, and do they know it? That's how you win that both spots, all the while doing the things that you need to do to be successful on the field. But you also have to put in the work around the time. So, I'm just we all know, and it's no secret that football coaches work a lot. They typically work Saturdays and Sundays. There's components to how do they do that. Now that we've post-COVID, we're in a bit of a virtual world, I'm seeing, but how efficient are we being with our time as far as planning goes? Or is it easier to take some weekends off? And, if planning is huge on that plate and you're not allowing yourself enough time to plan, then, it goes back into that work ethic piece. How much are we doing around so that you can do the full job and not just part of the job?
And being able to differentiate between what do I have to do and what can be delegated, right? Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important to have that building leadership capacity component. There are things that our athletic coordinators can give to solid head coaches if they are building that leadership capacity. You can't just dump it on them. You've got to give them some guidance. You got to give them some training, hold their hand a little bit, and then release them and let them go do some of those things that you could potentially take off of your plate. When it comes to mentoring other coaches, that does not have to be the two coordinators. You can delegate that out to head coaches who do a good job to be mentors on the campuses instead of being. And if you have a mentoring program on your campus, let them lead that. Give them something that's going to build that capacity that can take something off of your hands. So knowing how to delegate and when to delegate is a critical component in that role.